Rabbi Fred Dobb, who happens to be my rabbi for many years, many decades now, practically. No, it's decades. At Dot Shalom Reconstructionist Congregation in Bethesda. So when this idea came up, I was like immediately calling Fred, because Fred is the ultimate enviro rabbi, carrying around his recyclable cup for, and
rode his bike,
or ride his bike here, and so no better person to be with us and to give us some spiritual food for thought on this holiday than Rabbi Fred. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Why don't we all take a couple steps toward the tree? We're going to be treading anyway. And I know it's not a Department of Transportation event, but I think we have a new reason to hope for hybrid buses in the near future. I promise the spiritual won't overwhelm the governmental in minutes terms. We're a little cold, but imagine doing this in Russia. Apocryphally, Leo Tolstoy learned about Tu B'Shvat and said, there's hope for a people that plants trees in the middle of winter. So I'd like to think there is indeed hope. There is certainly hope for the incredible cooperation between this administration and these incredible people and the many advocates that are represented here. This is a beautiful moment. It's an honor for me, and I know a pleasure for so many of us to be working with you and vice versa. We are truly in this together. We're going to meet in a moment in, I believe, the Gifford Pinchot room, and Pinchot himself might have been interested to note the evolution of Tu B'Shvat from a day that was primarily about the commercial value of trees to a day that celebrates everything that trees are and do for us, celebrates the entirety of the tree. So in that spirit, to plant this tree with these officials and communal leaders, it's a giant symbolic step and a small but real incremental step toward all of the important things that trees do that Meryl so beautifully enumerated for us, including restoring the canopy and preserving habitat, reducing urban heat island effect, and let's not forget beautifying our cities and sequestering carbon.
That's the good sequestration.
Amen. And the only good sequestration. So, planting this tree is a small tikkun, a small but meaningful repair, because too many trees, of course, have been lost, even clear-cut, literally, in fire sales. Too many habitats denuded. Too many neighborhoods, especially lower-income urban neighborhoods. Let's not forget the overlap today between Martin Luther King Day and Erev Tu B'Shvat, another amazing confluence. And too many of these neighborhoods left barren. So may this sapling see the redoubling of commitment toward thinking over the long term. And whether we get there ecologically or theologically, it's about the long term. Not thinking in election cycles or profit report cycles, but life cycles and ecosystem cycles. Thinking, as Robert reminded us, and what a gift for those of us who've been doing this a long time, to have an assistant secretary who quotes Aldo Leopold, but thinking like a mountain, as Leopold wrote. And that's the same as the book of Exodus, implying that we need to think like God to the 1000th generation. So when we think long term, trees matter. Creation matters. Now, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Anyone? We're here to critique the very anthropocentrism, human-centeredness assumption behind the question. We humans share the vast majority of our DNA with fellow creatures. We are much more part of than we are apart from nature. So when trees fall, even with no one around, there are plenty of intelligent critters who hear it. But deeper, in Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, this is a text from around 300 of the Common Era. There's another koan. 6 events go unheard, yet their voices resound. The first of those 6, when we cut down a tree that bears fruit, its voice goes out from one end of the world to the other. yet it's not heard. A silent scream of global proportions, at a frequency beyond our human ear, yet we're taught of the scream nonetheless. What do we learn from this? And what does it have to do with planting? One, acknowledge that scream. Can we now tune into what so dismays the cosmos, what so dismays God about trees falling? To be clear, trees are rightly felled all the time when we raise just what we need and what the ecosystem can handle. But hearing the scream of the other trees can change what we buy, how we govern, how we live. Only post-consumer paper, only FSD certified wood, only selective logging. Two, we can't forget the screams of real people, particularly people with low incomes who need to eat. And we can't be here today without talking about SNAP as well, without remembering that the same good people who work on trees are also working on hunger, as are so many advocates like Josh Protus of Mazone and many of us. That too is a sacred concern. Three, we cannot stop the scream of trees who should not be felled alone. But by getting educated, then educating others. By modeling right behavior and then incentivizing it in those we work with, we can help diminish the scream of those trees. Four, where we can't stop the scream, we can offset it. Every tree we plant, every seed we nurture, every ecosystem we protect, all play a role. And finally, we, like the trees and all living things, are under threat from the rapid climate change that our one species is causing. Turning around this juggernaut is surprisingly hard, in case you haven't noticed. There are real screams of the scientific consensus. There are real screams of the early warning signs and the early impacts, and yet they too often are falling on deaf ears. We, the prophetic people, we, the Loraxes, we who hear that scream, must raise our voices still more. We must do more, even as we modulate our voices so that ever more people can hear the sacred message and warning that we deliver. So for trees, for earth, and for us, let's make sure that the scream is silent no more, and to reappropriate a term that has certain political cachet, plant, baby, plant.